Money increased. The salary jumped. The business grew. The investments paid off. You upgraded your apartment, bought better clothes, ate at nicer restaurants. You expected relief. You expected the pressure to ease. You expected breathing room. Instead, the weight became heavier. The pressure intensified. The obligations multiplied. Every dollar earned seemed to demand $2 spent. Every upgrade created new standards to maintain. Every improvement opened new channels of expense you never saw before. You find yourself making more money than you ever have, yet feeling more stretched than when you earned less. The bank account shows higher numbers, but the stress runs deeper. The lifestyle improved, but the anxiety amplified. You thought money would solve the pressure problem. Instead, money became the pressure problem. This happens to nearly everyone who experiences income increase. It defies logic. It contradicts expectation. It frustrates those who work hard and see results, yet feel penalized by their own success. You earn more. You expect more freedom. You get more burden. You climb the income ladder. You expect more security. You discover more vulnerability. The pattern appears across every income level. The person making $40,000 feels it when they reach 60. The person making $60,000 feels it when they reach 90. The person making $90,000 feels it when they reach 150. The amounts change, but the experience remains identical. More money, more pressure. Higher income, higher stakes. Greater earnings, greater exposure. You wonder if something is wrong with you. You wonder if you lack gratitude for what you have achieved. You wonder if you are managing money poorly or spending irresponsibly. You wonder if inflation or economic conditions are eating away your gains faster than you can create them. You blame your budgeting skills, your financial discipline, your inability to appreciate progress. But this is not about gratitude. This is not about poor budgeting. This is not about inflation eating your purchasing power. This is not about irresponsible spending or lack of effort. This is not about you failing to appreciate what you have earned or accomplished. This is not a money problem. It is a structural one. The Bible records this exact pattern with precise clarity. King Solomon accumulated wealth beyond measurement. Gold flowed into his treasury like water. Silver became common as stones in Jerusalem. His wealth exceeded every king before him and every king after him. His kingdom prospered. His influence expanded across continents. His reputation for wisdom and riches spread to distant lands. Yet Solomon wrote that all this abundance felt like vanity, like chasing wind. The more he acquired, the more restless he became. The greater his wealth, the heavier his burden. The higher his position, the deeper his sense of emptiness. He had everything money could purchase, yet described his experience as meaningless pursuit. Solomon did not lack resources. He did not struggle with poverty or scarcity. He commanded unlimited wealth, yet found no rest in its accumulation. The abundance that should have created freedom created obligation instead. The wealth that should have provided security created exposure instead. The increase that should have brought satisfaction brought restlessness instead. This confirms what you experience now. More money does not automatically produce more peace. Higher income does not automatically generate lower stress. Financial increase does not automatically create emotional decrease in pressure. The relationship between money and relief is not direct or predictable. Money does not create relief. Money reveals structure. When you earn more, you expose the system through which your money flows. When income increases, the existing structure handles larger amounts, but the structure itself remains unchanged. If that structure lacks containment, if that structure channels money outward faster than inward, if that structure creates obligation faster than it creates security, then more money simply amplifies these tendencies. Think of water flowing through a cracked container. Adding more water does not fix the cracks, it reveals them more clearly. The container leaks faster with more volume passing through it. The problem was never the amount of water. The problem was always the integrity of the container. More water makes the structural problem more obvious, not less obvious. Your income increased, but the structure handling that income remained the same. The channels through which money flows remained unchanged. The obligations that money creates remained in place. The systems that direct money outward continued operating exactly as before, but now with larger amounts to process. When you made less money, these structural issues were manageable. The leaks were small because the volume was small. The obligations were modest because the resources were modest. The outward flow was limited because the inward flow was limited. The structural problems existed, but they operated on a scale that felt controllable. Now you make more money, and the same structural problems handle larger amounts. The leaks become floods. The obligations become overwhelming. The outward flow becomes a torrent. The structural problems that were manageable at lower income levels become unmanageable at higher income levels. This explains why wealthy people often feel more financially stressed than poor people. The structural issues that create financial pressure scale with income. A person making $30,000 with poor financial structure feels pressured by $3,000 in obligations. A person making $300,000 with the same structural issues feels pressured by $30,000 in obligations. The ratio remains identical, but the absolute amounts create entirely different levels of stress. The person making $30,000 can imagine solving their pressure problem by earning more money. This imagination provides hope and motivation. The person making $300,000 cannot imagine solving their pressure problem by earning more money because they already earn substantial money. This reality provides despair and confusion. You now understand why more money increased your pressure instead of decreasing it. The money was never the source of pressure or the solution to pressure. The structure was always the source of pressure. Money simply revealed and amplified what already existed. When you earned less, you could blame financial pressure on insufficient income. This blame provided a clear target and a clear solution. Earn more money, reduce financial pressure. Simple cause and effect. Clear action to take. Obvious problem to solve. When you earn more and pressure increases, this blame disappears. You cannot blame insufficient income because your income is sufficient or even abundant. You cannot blame lack of effort because you already succeeded in increasing earnings. You cannot blame external circumstances because you overcame those circumstances to achieve income growth. The elimination of obvious blame creates confusion and frustration. If the problem is not insufficient income, what is the problem? If more money creates more pressure, how does anyone achieve financial peace? If increase leads to intensification rather than relief, why pursue increase at all? These questions have no simple answers because they address structural issues that operate beneath the surface of conscious awareness. Most people never examine the systems that handle their money. They focus on earning money, spending money, saving money, investing money. They rarely examine the structures that determine how money flows through their lives. These structures include automatic obligations that scale with income. When you earn more, you feel pressure to live in a better neighborhood. Better neighborhoods cost more money. They also create social pressure to maintain appearances consistent with that neighborhood. Your car must fit the area. Your clothes must fit the environment. Your entertainment must match the social level. Your children's activities must align with community standards. Each upgrade creates a cascade of related upgrades. The better apartment requires better furniture. The better furniture requires better decorations. The better decorations require better maintenance. The better maintenance requires more time or more money spent on services. Every improvement pulls additional improvements along with it. These cascading obligations operate automatically. You do not consciously choose each upgrade. You move to a better area, and the upgrades choose themselves based on environmental pressure and social expectation. What feels like conscious choice often represents unconscious adaptation to new structural requirements. The structures also include expanded accessibility to credit and debt. When you earn more money, lenders offer larger credit limits. They approve bigger loans. They extend more favorable terms. Your increased income creates increased borrowing capacity, which creates increased temptation to use that capacity. You did not have access to a $50,000 credit line when you earned $30,000 per year. You could not qualify for a $300,000 mortgage when you earned $50,000 per year. Your lower income protected you from larger financial obligations by making them unavailable. Your higher income exposes you to larger financial obligations by making them available. Increased income also creates increased expectations from others. Family members expect more generous gifts. Friends expect more expensive activities. Colleagues expect higher quality professional presentation. Society expects contribution levels consistent with earning levels. These expectations operate as subtle but persistent pressure that channels money outward. The person earning $30,000 faces minimal expectation for charitable giving. The person earning $100,000 faces substantial expectation for charitable contribution. The person earning $30,000 can decline expensive social activities without judgment. The person earning $100,000 faces social pressure to participate in expensive activities as a normal part of professional and social life. These structural forces explain why people often report feeling financially freer when they earned less money. Lower income created natural boundaries. Expensive options were unavailable. Social expectations were modest. Credit access was limited. Upgrade pressure was minimal. The constraints that felt restrictive actually provided protection from financial obligation and pressure. Higher income removes these protective constraints. Expensive options become available. Social expectations increase. Credit access expands. Upgrade pressure intensifies. The freedom that money provides creates exposure to obligation that money cannot satisfy. More choices create more ways to spend money. More access creates more temptation to use that access. The structural issues also include expanded responsibility for financial security. When you earn more money, you become responsible for maintaining that income level. You must protect and preserve the career, business, or investments that generate higher income. This protection requires time, energy, attention, and often additional money investment. The person earning modest income faces modest responsibility for maintaining that income. If they lose their job, they can find another job at similar income level with relative ease. If their business fails, they can start another business with minimal capital requirements. If their investments decline, the absolute loss is manageable. The person earning substantial income faces substantial responsibility for maintaining that income. If they lose their high-paying job, finding another position at the same level is difficult and competitive. If their business fails, they lose significant invested capital and accumulated business value. If their investments decline, the absolute loss can be devastating, even if the percentage loss is modest. This expanded responsibility creates ongoing pressure to perform, maintain, and protect income sources. You cannot relax into higher income. You must actively sustain higher income. The money you earn today requires continued effort to earn tomorrow. The income increase that should provide security actually creates new forms of insecurity. The structural forces operate beneath conscious awareness, which makes them difficult to identify and address. You feel the pressure they create, but you cannot pinpoint their source. You experience the obligations they generate, but you cannot trace their origin. You sense the weight they add to financial life, but you cannot measure their specific impact. This invisibility makes the structural problem feel like a personal problem. You assume you are managing money poorly because you feel financial pressure despite earning good money. You assume you lack gratitude because you feel burdened by income increase. You assume you need better budgeting skills or financial discipline or economic education. But personal solutions cannot fix structural problems. Better budgeting cannot eliminate structural pressure. Improved discipline cannot remove structural obligations. Financial education cannot prevent structural forces from operating. You can optimize your response to these forces, but you cannot eliminate the forces themselves through personal effort. Understanding the structural nature of this pressure provides clarity, but not immediate relief. Recognition explains your experience, but does not change your experience. Knowing why more money creates more pressure does not automatically reduce the pressure more money creates. The structural forces continue operating whether you understand them or not. This knowledge, however, shifts your focus from personal failure to system analysis. You stop blaming yourself for feeling pressured by income increase. You stop assuming something is wrong with your financial management. You stop expecting money itself to solve pressure that money itself amplifies. The biblical account continues beyond Solomon's individual experience. The entire nation of Israel experienced this same pattern. When they lived in the wilderness, they had minimal possessions but clear provision. Food appeared daily. Water flowed from rocks. Clothing did not wear out. Their needs were met consistently and predictably. When they entered the promised land, their possessions multiplied rapidly. They acquired houses they did not build. They harvested crops they did not plant. They gained wealth through conquest and settlement. Their material abundance increased dramatically in a short period of time. Yet this abundance brought new forms of pressure their wilderness experience never contained. They faced military threats from surrounding nations who wanted their land and wealth. They dealt with internal conflicts over resource distribution. They struggled with maintaining unity when resources were abundant rather than scarce. They discovered that having more meant protecting more, managing more, and worrying about losing more. The pressure they experienced in abundance was different from but not less than the pressure they experienced in scarcity. Scarcity created pressure from lack. Abundance created pressure from responsibility. Scarcity threatened survival. Abundance threatened stability. Scarcity simplified decisions. Abundance complicated decisions. This pattern repeats throughout history and across cultures. Increase creates new forms of pressure that replace old forms of pressure. Different income levels face different structural challenges, but every income level faces structural challenges. The nature of pressure changes with financial circumstances, but the presence of pressure remains constant. You now see your experience as part of a larger pattern rather than an individual failure. The pressure you feel from income increase is structural, not personal. The weight you carry from higher earnings is systematic, not unique. The obligations that multiply with money are environmental, not optional. This recognition changes nothing immediately, but it changes everything fundamentally. You stop fighting an internal battle against your own reactions to financial pressure. You start observing external forces that create financial pressure. You stop assuming money will eventually provide relief if you just earn enough or manage better. You start understanding money as a tool that amplifies whatever system already exists. Scripture records that the same forces which intensify pressure under increase also produce stability when order is present. What changes is not the flow itself, but the condition of what receives it. In the next account, we will observe this same pattern under different conditions, where increase no longer intensifies pressure but begins to produce stability. The pressure returns, the weight increases, the demands multiply, but this time the system holds. What matters is not how much flows through, but what receives it. The next account remains for those who continue observing.